Talk, and today I'm starting a new series, and it's going to be about recording, setting up a recording studio or recording drums. I'm not going to do the recording drums necessarily. Maybe at the end I'll start getting into actually miking a drum kit and all that stuff, but I want to talk about, I've had some questions about how do I get a recording studio set up, and what kind of budget do I have to be on to get a recording studio set up, and how much do the mics cost, and what kind of mics do you buy, and all that kind of stuff. So today we're going to talk about microphones. This is part one, is microphones. Now, I am a firm believer that you don't need a huge mic closet to do this kind of work. What you need to mic a drum kit today is a couple different types of microphones. One is a dynamic microphone. The 57s right here, SM57s, is probably the most common dynamic microphone found today, and it's usually, you can get this microphone for under $100. SM57s are the standard for snare drum miking. Okay? For tom miking, there's lots of choices out there, but they work great for tom miking. Matter of fact, just about any dynamic microphone can be a snare mic, a tom mic, or a kick drum mic, because it has high sound pressure level rating. And what you want is a sound pressure level rating that can handle the sound of a drum blowing into it. Usually the sound pressure level rating of these type of microphones is somewhere around 135, 137 decibels, which is the sound of a snare drum cracking through it. SM57s work great for that. So when we talk about the main drum kit, you're talking about dynamic microphones. Now, you don't have to use dynamic microphones. There are other microphones to be used. Now, dynamic microphones, and this is a typical kick drum microphone, this is a D112E. Typical dynamic microphones have got a cardioid pattern, meaning it rejects some of the noise coming from the back of it and gets most of its sound from what comes into the microphone. Okay? Now, typically, dynamic microphones are what you want on a drum kit. Now, a better choice, if you want a really tight focused sound, is a hypercardioid microphone, which, by the way, I don't have a good hypercardioid microphone. That really rejects what's coming from the rear and only gets what's going in the front. The other type of microphone that most guys use, or what they find in overhead microphones, is called a condenser microphone. Now, condenser microphones come in different types of patterns. Typically, there's the cardioid condenser, or the hypercardioid condenser. That's a hard word to say, cardioid condenser. Or you've got the omnipresent condenser microphone. Okay? And omnipresent means that when you hit the sound, it also gets the sound from behind. So if you're miking with an omnipresent microphone, you're getting all the sound coming from this way into the diaphragm, but anything it reflects off of is also getting into the diaphragm. Omnipresent has a purpose and a use, and there are some great omnipresent microphones out there. Alright? Most guys, though, in a studio for overhead miking will use a small diaphragm condenser microphone with a cardioid or hypercardioid pattern. But this Behringer microphone, which is an EMC 8000, I don't even know if you can buy these today. I bought these about 15 years ago. They were like 40 bucks each. These are a great overhead microphone on the cheap. There's a guy in Tape Op magazine. I recommend, if you want to get into recording, you go to tapeop.com and look at Tape Op magazine. It comes free subscription. You get a free subscription to it. I've had one for years. There's always great techniques to be learned. And by the way, I recommend reading a lot of magazines and to get learning, or going. Today, you guys go to YouTube. Nobody reads magazines, right? But I read a lot of magazines in my day. Sound on Sound magazine. I've been a subscriber to that for a long time. Recording Magazine, Electronic Musician, Mix Magazine, and Tape Op. And I'm today still getting Tape Op and still getting Sound on Sound magazine. Now, the other type of condenser microphone is a large diaphragm condenser. And the difference between a small diaphragm condenser and a large diaphragm condenser is the size of the mic. Now, if I was to take this off, this is a MXL V67. Again, another mic that's not being made anymore. These are great overhead mics They're also a good male vocal mic on the cheap, and I've had it for a long time. They've got about that big of a diaphragm, about the size of a quarter, which is what it was modeled after, kind of the U87 concept. The U87 is the Neumann U87, which is a condenser microphone with a large diaphragm. So it was designed for vocalists, but you will see these sometimes placed as tom mics, not this mic, but U87s. Sometimes you'll see U87s on a kit. Another famous large diaphragm condenser mic is the AKG 414, which I don't have one of those. They're about $500 each. And in my mic closet, I don't think I have a microphone that costs more than $500. Yet I've recorded many albums without having a U87, without having an AKG 414. So you don't have to have a Neumann or an AKG 414. It's great if you can afford it, okay? But you don't need it to make great records. You don't need it to get great drum sounds, okay? So large diaphragm condenser mics are sometimes used as overheads. So sometimes these are used for overheads, and sometimes small diaphragm condensers are used for overheads. This small diaphragm condenser is called a OCTAVA MK0112, and it's a Russian-made microphone. I bought this at Guitar Center in 2001. I bought 2 of them for less than $100 each. These microphones are so sweet, you cannot believe. When you get the Russian-made ones, not the Chinese knockoffs, because they started making Chinese knockoffs in the middle 2000s. But if you get some of the Russian-made ones, they are some sweet microphones. This was the Russian version of a Neumann KM84. So it's actually a really nice sounding microphone. And you can change the head. This actually comes apart, and you can turn it into you can put a cardioid or a hypercardioid, or you can even put a large diaphragm head on it, kind of like a lollipop. It would look like a blue baby bottle mic, one of those kind of lollipop heads on it, and use it as a vocal mic. It's an incredibly versatile microphone, the way this is built. But these are really sweet overheads. Most of my overhead recordings are done with an SM81, and I'm not going to pull them down to bring it in camera, but an SM81 is what I've been using for a long time as my overhead. Sometimes I switch them out to these. Sometimes you'll find this on my hi-hat. It all depends on what I'm trying to do. Now, another microphone that a lot of guys like to have in their mic closet, and I use mostly for vocals, I've tried it on overheads, is what they call a valve or tube mic. This is a Rode NTK. And to use a tube mic, it's not like a condenser mic. Condenser mic needs the 48 volts phantom power to power the microphone. A tube microphone actually has its own power source. So you have a very special cable that goes from this to the power source. Then the power source gets connected to your board or your preamp to actually get the sound to it. But tube microphones are great for vocalists, and I've used this on a lot of vocal sessions, is this Rode NTK. I actually have 2 of these, so I can use them as overheads, but I've used this a lot on vocal sessions. It's a very sweet sounding microphone. Tube valve microphones basically add some distortion to it. They color the voice. Where your classic U87 style microphone is supposed to be a little bit less coloring the voice. That's the concept anyhow. All of these Chinese made microphones, or less than $3,000 microphones, add some coloration to it because they're modeling after U87s or U67s, which is the tube version of the or U47, I think it is. U47 or U67, can't remember. Version of a Neumann. They're all trying to get near that coloration, okay? Or they're going after the Telefunken 251, or they're going after the AKG C12, which are all tube microphones. And tube microphones provide warmth and a little bit of vocal distortion to the vocal that's kind of makes it warmer, fatter. So that's why you would use this type of microphone. The last microphone that is used, and by the way, this is only in a cardioid pattern. If you got a U87 or a U47, they will usually have multiple polar patterns, meaning hypercardioid, cardioid, and then the last one being what they call figure 8. Now figure 8 means you can get sounds from both sides. So a lot of times when you have a figure 8 microphone and you're doing a vocal session, you'll see like a group of people on one side of it and a group on the other side singing into the mic, because the pattern picks up both sides. That's a true figure 8 microphone. One of the figure 8 microphones that I own is this Russian-made ribbon mic. This is an MA52, okay? And this is a Russian version of a ribbon mic. Now ribbon mic doesn't have a diaphragm, a micron gold-plated diaphragm. It's got these little ribbons of steel, or whatever. I don't know if they're steel or aluminum, what they are. But they're brought down, straight down, and they're very sensitive. So you don't put a ribbon mic in a high sound pressure level situation. Normally if you're going to use this mic to mic drums, you mic it way off the drums, or use it as an overhead. This one's a little bit more versatile than most ribbon microphones in that you can get it close to a guitar cabinet. I've used it on guitars. Very cherished sound for guitar sounds. The best known ribbon microphone is a Royer 121, which is a beautiful ribbon microphone. Anyhow, I've thrown a lot of names, I've thrown a lot of different types of mics. I hope you've learned something about microphones today. This is just a quick video about microphones. So hopefully you learned something. Leave a comment, click subscribe, click the little bell if you like what you're hearing. There's going to be more to come because I'm going to get into interfaces and I'm going to get into recording software and all that good stuff. Anyhow, take care. Thanks for coming to Drum Talk. God bless. Bye.